As Rangers fans, we know that a goaltender is the backbone of a hockey team. At Abundant Wealth Management, we are your financial backbone, offering financial planning, wealth management, tax planning, and estate planning services. To schedule your free consultation, head to www.abundant-wealth.com. That's www.abundant-wealth.com. Abundant Wealth Management. Live, plan, triumph.
You're listening to Rangers Radio, your home for end-to-end coverage of the New York Rangers. With your hosts, Brendan Azoff, Zach Domino, and Steve Pappas. Blue Shirts fans, the puck drops now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rangers Radio. We got myself and Steven today. Zook is going to be at the game, so he's not going to be joining us for the episode. But the last time I've been on this screen was January 2nd, and since then the Rangers are 7-1-3. They've rattled off a 9-game point streak. So I guess the 2-week break that I've had kind of has done wonders for the New York Rangers. And we got a lot of fun things to talk about, which for me is the first time that I'm actually going to have some fun talking about the Rangers since probably early November. So it's going to be a nice change of pace. But how's things going, buddy?
So you not being on this show means that they were good. So what you're saying is
I know Flyers, the comments are going to be fun if they lose tonight.
Flyers money line tonight. That's good to know.
Exactly.
Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Matt Rempe's not a good hockey player.
No, so I'm going to let you take this first because I know that you had the heat on social media while I was at the game on Tuesday.
I cannot believe that I have to verbally defend myself for this. And don't get me wrong, I don't think he's a very good personality and just a vibe. There's no denying the vibe that this kid brings. But to say he's a bad hockey player shouldn't be a controversial statement. He's just not. He's got 2 National Hockey League goals. It is hilarious that he made me eat my words as soon as I tweeted that. So good on him. But he doesn't bring much. He doesn't bring much. And we're going to try and talk as positive as we can throughout this entire episode. But I feel like I have to get that out there that he's a fun player to watch. He is for the casual fan, someone that you can just kind of relate. He hasn't been media trained enough to not have a personality. So he's like this golden retriever, but as a player, he's just not a good National Hockey League player. And I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. I would much rather a guy like Jimmy Vesey be in the lineup, even Johnny Brodzinski. Some of you might disagree with me. You're wrong. That's all I can say. You're wrong. I'm not taking any comments on that. If you feel like commenting, then I'm going to ignore it. But I don't think it's controversial to say Matt Rempe's not a good hockey player, and I think you would agree with me on that.
I think that there's a lot to his game that has to improve before he's going to be a regular NHLer. And part of my gripe with them continuing to play him is not necessarily on Matt Rempe itself; it's on the organization. This is a guy that does bring some element to the game that the Rangers desperately need, and I get that point, but at the same time, if you let him develop for the last 2 seasons just fully in the AHL, there might actually be more moments like we saw the other night against Ottawa, in addition to some of the chaos that he causes. And I think that that's where a lot of it stems from. Now, you could watch most nights. Now, obviously, he had a very nice goal the other night against Ottawa that was set up by Adam Edstrom, who I think over the last 9 games during this point streak has been a key component to the New York Rangers, along with his line mate Sam Carrick. But it was nice to see that happen. But it kind of overshadows the other elements on the nights that he doesn't score, where, first of all, he's not even playing. So you can't even say anything about his game because the guy plays 3 minutes a night. But if you're going to have somebody on your bench that's only playing 3 minutes a night, that's there really for moral support, it's a waste of a roster spot. And whether you're the biggest Matt Rempe fan or not, I don't know how you can argue that point. And I know every time I say anything online, somebody goes, oh, their record's really good with them. And
yes,
I get that.
I'm going to cut you off. Please miss me with that record shit, because it's him playing 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is a night does not correlate to the team succeeding. He joined the team last year in the middle of a run for the President's Trophy. It's not like him entering the lineup turned this team into a juggernaut. He came into a good lineup. This year, it's a little different because they were bad for so long that you could have an argument for him being in the lineup has helped him out. But just down the line, I picked 3 guys, not necessarily at random through Rangers history, recent Rangers history at least, that sort of kind of bleed this same Matt Rempe type of player with the record. Tanner Glass, 75, 45, and 14 with the New York Rangers in his time. Did the Rangers win the President's Trophy and go to a Stanley Cup because Tanner Glass was on the team? Not even close. Rafael Diaz, 7-2-2 in his short stint with the New York Rangers. A little bit less of a sample size than Matt Rempe, but still, were they good because Rafi Diaz? No. And then my favorite and your favorite as well, 19, 9, and 3. So around the same amount of games with Daniel Carcillo. And Daniel Carcillo was a fun guy. Obviously, speaking of tonight against the Flyers, him giving the bird to, or the guy giving the bird to Carcillo in the playoffs in 2014 was fun.
What goalie did he score that goal against?
Was it is it Boucher?
No, it was Steve Mason.
Steve Mason. Okay. It was one of
Brady
two.
Catching goalie.
Steve Mason, that's a great pull. But
yep.
Just because the team has a good record with the player does not mean the player is good. And I really want to emphasize, and I really hope you can take the 2 working brain cells that you still have, and I really hope they fire at the same time so you can get this thought across. You can critically think for like a nanosecond that just because Matt Rempe is in the lineup and the record is what they are with him in the lineup doesn't mean he's the reason that the team is good. It's just it doesn't take high school calculus to figure that out. And there's some people that just can't figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, if you really are analyzing the Rangers like we do when we're watching, and I know a lot of people do online right now, it's pretty evident why they're playing better. Igor Shesterkin has come off the injured list and is playing really well, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the team defense overall, they're not giving up as many grade A's. And the only game outside out of the stretch that they have given up that many grade A's was the Montreal game, which they lost 5-4 in overtime. But outside of that, they've actually done a really good job at solidifying the middle of the ice. They are not over eager in the offensive zone. And by that, I mean their forecheck wasn't good during that stretch, but they were getting caught below the puck way too many times. That now you're starting to see the structure come back, the 1-3-1 that people liked. And it all is accumulating into this stretch of them starting to get back to their game, because I feel like this 6-0-3 stretch is much more of the Rangers than that 2-month stretch was. And I think that I'm not going to call it a fluke because it's too long of a stretch to be considered a fluke, but that was not New York Rangers hockey. I don't think you go from President's Trophy to having the start they had this season to just becoming a basement dweller all of a sudden. And now we're starting to see that middle ground where they're not playing perfect games, but they're actually getting those bounces that they weren't getting and finding ways to win. So I think that from the Matt Rempe, we should go into a positive, right? And we got a lot of people listening already. We appreciate you guys. Hit the comments. We want to hear you guys. And I know everybody's in the comment section when negatives going on. Now we got some positives to talk about, and it's quiet right now. But 6-0-3 in the last 9 games, 9-game point streak. The only thing that they have not been able to do during this stretch is string together wins. They've won a couple, then they've lost in overtime. Now they're on a 1-game streak where they've won against Ottawa on Tuesday night, and now they play a pivotal matchup against the Flyers. Now, I don't know about you, but if you told me that on January 23rd, the Rangers would be playing the Flyers in a key game for the wild card race, I would have said that's not a good recipe for the season. But that's exactly where we are. And the Flyers might have played one more game than the Rangers, but they have the same amount of points at 50. And tonight's game, we'll see one team jump the other and get really close to that wild card line. So what are you looking for tonight, and what are your thoughts on what wind up being a big matchup this late in the season, I should say?
I'm saying screw the wild card spot and start looking at that
you're
third
spot
in the Metro. The Devils might not have a goalie for a long time. It's crazy. You go back 3 weeks and you listen to our episodes and you turn this one on. It's hilarious. The 180. Sometimes we talk about. I'm still a little bit more reserved in what I think this team is capable of, and obviously the expectations that we had. But it is good to see that they've snapped out of this rut. I think it's safe to say now that whatever happened in November and December, that wasn't what this team was. They were in a rut and they couldn't find their way out of it until they did. And this, 9 straight games with a point is a little bit more like the team that we've seen that started this year, and you're hoping that it can continue. And we talked about it last week that these games that are coming up, these next like 21, now I believe it's probably 17 or 18 games, are all against teams that you're battling with in the Eastern Conference to get into the postseason. So if you can come out of here with a record 4 or 5 games above 500, all of a sudden you've gained ground on a lot of these teams. And now you look at circumstances like the Devils, where they don't have a goalie. There are opportunities for you to move up even higher. And again, it's crazy to say they're 10 points behind the Devils right now. They're 3 games in hand, or the Devils have 3 games in hand, played 3 less. So there are 9 points, or I'm sorry, that's bad math. 6 points. For some reason, I was thinking of 3. Yep. 6 points available or unaccounted for right now. So you could be 4 points behind the Devils, which is very gettable. But they're in a spot right now where you're seeing guys that were playing about as poorly as they've ever played start to at least get to average. And this team playing at its, average is one of the better teams in the league. I think it's no shock to say that after winning the President's Trophy last year. It was just too many guys not playing anywhere near serviceable at the National Hockey League level for too long. And I think we are starting to see, and we saw it a lot at the beginning of the year, the depth of this team be able to take over games against other teams' depth. Like, I don't want this to get lost in the fact that they had this horrendous stretch in the beginning of the year. Their depth might be one of the best in the league. You go down their third and fourth line of Carrick, Edstrom, and Rempe, and quite frankly, I don't really know who the third line is. It's been changing all the time.
Right now, it's Edel, Kaliev, and Kreider.
Edel, Kaliev, Kreider is a fantastic third line. So their bottom 6 is one of the best bottom 6s in the National Hockey League. They need more from the top. And I don't think it's insane to say that. You're still not getting a lot from Mika. Panarin is, kind of an average Panarin. He's a point per game right now. He's not on pace to, surpass 80 points or 90 points at this point. Trocheck's still meh. Lafreniere, the last 2 games has been good, but overall meh. Like, if the top 6, and we've said it basically since the beginning of the year, if the top 6 can get going, this team is dangerous because their bottom 6 is consistent. I like the lineup that we've got so far. I like the lineup that we've seen from a top to bottom overall well-rounded lineup. Defensively, this Borgen and Miller line has been really good. Euro Vakanainen has stepped in and has been a very good piece. Obviously every now and then there's a fumble, but it's to expect. It's a matter of Ryan Lindgren's still not good enough. Braden Schneider on nights, not good enough, but you're getting elite quality play from Adam Fox. So there is a lot to look forward to with this team. Unfortunately, it's because that November and December were so bad that we're now sitting here and taking these small wins. Because at the beginning of the year, this isn't like, it wouldn't be monumental that they were on a 9-game point streak and they went 6-0-3. Like, it was just to be expected. And I don't want to move the goalposts as the season goes on. That the expectation still is they have to win a Stanley Cup for this to be a successful year. Yeah. Just because they had a bad stretch and now, they come back if they make the playoffs, the story cannot be, oh, look at the resilience, they came back. It is, this was a team that was built to win a Stanley Cup that didn't do it.
That ultimately failed. Yeah.
Ultimately failed. But they're in a spot right now that they were much better at than they were 3 weeks ago at the start of 2025. So, it's hard to complain when you watch some of these games. We're obviously going to do that because that's just the nature of who we are. But you can't ignore that it is a much better product night in and night out.
Yeah, and we got a comment here. Thoughts on shaking up the top line. Hate to mess with the other lines, but they have gotten too east-west for me and defer to each other and create turnovers when they could get great A's.
You could copy-paste that into any season of Rangers hockey of the last 5
you'll
years.
Have a compatible line. Yep.
Yeah,
now listen, I put out something on X during the last game where I'm ready to see a Cooley and Panarin swap, and by that I mean I want to see Panarin on the wing with Zibanejad and Riley Smith, and see Cooley on the line with Trocheck and Lafreniere. I think that right now Lafreniere especially, and this is no fault of Artemi Panarin's, but Artemi Panarin is so good at the delay play at the blue line, finding open guys, finding trailing players, and Artemi Panarin's game is built around that, and he's elite at that. Now you have his line mate, Alexis Lafreniere, who had a great season last year, got confidence, and is trying to do the cute stuff that Panarin does, and that doesn't suit Lafreniere's game, and that's where you're seeing the turnovers that you're alluding to in that comment. So I kind of want to see a Lafreniere paired with two guys in Trocheck and Cooley that are more north-south, straight-ahead type players that he will have a little bit more space in the high slot area to create because those guys are going to draw the defense down, whereas Panarin will be able to go on a line and create and hopefully continue to get Mika Zibanejad and Riley Smith going. Because Riley Smith, I don't know how to say this. He might be one of the most hot and cold players I've watched during my time watching the New York Rangers. And, you look at the other night where he has the shorthanded goal to bring the Rangers back against Utah. You look at when he has good games, and he's very noticeable both defensively and offensively. And then the other night against Ottawa, it's a 5-0 game, so nobody's going to talk about it. But there were 4 or 5 just blatant tape-to-tape turnovers with the other team, and he just didn't have it. So there's too much inconsistency in his game. So if you put a guy like Panarin on that line that can create without anybody else, maybe that'll bring more consistency to the other two guys, and that's something I kind of want to see. And if I were the coach, that might be a change that I implement coming up. But you also can't really change much when you're 6-0-3.
No, I get it. And, it's my whole discourse with Rempe is everybody that seems to, is the defender of this is like, hey, they're winning, so why change anything? And like, I get it to a sense. But, I like the idea of giving Zibanejad a facilitator like a Panarin, just an elite facilitator. And I'm not saying it's going to cure him. Like, he might just be too far gone at this point. And it sucks because I have been a Zibanejad fan for as long as he's been on this team. I think, if you started watching this team in 2016 when he joined the club, he's been one of their best players forever. The last year and a half, it's sort of, it's gone by the wayside. But I also think he's a very mental player, if that makes sense. Like, if he's mentally in it, if he's mentally checked in, he's going to be one of the best players in the league. Right now, over the last, say, 18 months, it hasn't necessarily been the case. But if you can get him with a guy, play with him consistently, a guy like Panarin, sometimes you'll start seeing these pucks go in for Zibanejad. Maybe that joy comes back. It's a soft way of thinking, but everybody's different. You have to. Everybody needs to be coached and thought of in a different light. Everyone can't be held under the same microscope. And for me, he's a very mental player, and a little. The word coddling is like a bad terminology. It just means you're catering to a guy, but sometimes you need that. And it might not be the worst thing in the world for Mika, but there are room for improvement with change, whether they're going well or not. I think you can still make changes and tweaks, and it's not going to screw everything sideways.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do want to get back to the Devils topic because prior to the Markstrom injury, I was going to bring this up on today's episode, and I was going to say, am I crazy for thinking that that's attainable? And obviously, the Markstrom injury helps the Rangers' chances and hurts the Devils. And I don't want to see anybody get injured. And that looked pretty ugly the way.
By the way, Kevin Weeks, let me find it. Kevin Weeks, I'm told the Devils club feared it would be worse, but hearing it's a knee sprain will miss some time, and Four Nations face-off could be in jeopardy for Markstrom. So it doesn't sound as bad. So he might be out 2 to 3 weeks.
His leg was kind of folded the wrong way when it hit the post. So that wasn't, pretty to see. But you mentioned 3 games in hand, right? So you have 3 games in hand on the Devils, 10 points behind them. Now, saying you're going to win those 3 games in hand on paper sounds great. We all know that's a different story. But for the theoretical purposes, let's say they do. So now you're 4 points back, same amount of games played, and late in the year, you do play a game against New Jersey. So you can be 2 points behind New Jersey if you win those 4 games that we just discussed. And that's really, not out of the realm of possibility with how they've played lately. Now, the reason I'm not fully back on the New York Rangers is because they had the 5-0-1 stretch to start the year, 6-game point streak. Now they're on a 9-game point streak. The majority of their points have come during 2 streaks. This streak eventually will end, right? All good things must come to an end. When it does, how they bounce back will determine if I'm going to say, okay, the Rangers can make the playoffs or not. Right now, it's all fun. It's a good story that they've found a way to come back in the new year, that they've, climbed up the standings like they did and made this actually interesting down the stretch. But until they lose that game in regulation that ends this streak, and until I see them come back the next night and get a win, I'm going to be like same old now. They're back then regretting back to the old ways and regressing, I should say. So, it's tough because part of me wants to be positive and say they're 2 points back. They got games at hand on Boston. They beat Ottawa, who's in the second wild card spot. They beat Columbus, who's in the first wild card spot. There's nothing standing in their way of getting back to a playoff spot. But the reality is they do stand in their own way if they can't kind of rebound once the streak does come to an end. So
yeah, and I'll tell you, after tonight, it's Colorado, Carolina, Boston, Vegas, Boston.
Yeah, they get Colorado on a back-to-back. So Colorado's going to be on the second leg, and the Rangers have 2 nights off. So you should be the fresher team in that one. Carolina, rivalry Metro game. We all know that those are crapshoots, so it doesn't matter where they are in the standings. But like you said, Vegas is a problem.
You go Boston, Vegas back-to-back with travel.
Yeah. Now, the Vegas game, okay, whatever. Not as important as the Boston game because you got to keep burying Boston at that point. So that you got to start to win these Eastern Conference games. The Western Conference games, you need to get the points, obviously, with where the Rangers are in the standings. But the paramount games are the ones against the East, especially the teams in contention with you. And that's why the games that they've played where they lost to overtime to Montreal, they're playing tight games against all these other teams. You need to get those wins in regulation. Right?
I will say this. I've said this already, and it's a bit of a poo-poo on the whole, positive vibes thing.
Yeah.
But if the Rangers are a good team, if the Rangers are a top-of-the-line NHL team, they're 9-0. All 3 of those games that they lost in overtime, they had the lead in the third period. Yep. It's not like they clawed back, they got the goal to send it to overtime, and they lost. No, they had a 3-goal lead against Dallas. They had another lead in the third period. They blew that one. They had a goal lead in the final 5 minutes against Colorado. They blew that one. They had a lead in the third period against Montreal. They blew that one and got the point. Like, it's not as if this team has won these games and also have fought back in the games that they've trailed in. No, they have blown leads that have resulted in them missing out on 3 key points. Again, not shifting the goalposts here. This is a team with expectations at the start of the year of a Stanley Cup. And I'm not going to just change that because they were shit for 3 months or 2 months or whatever it was. So if a Stanley Cup team is winning 9 of these games, all 9 of these games, they're not 6-0-3, they're 9-0, which is concerning a little bit. But to the people that saw the stretch that they were on and now come back and say, well, they're better, then you'll have that they're 9 straight points, or 9 straight games with points. But we are at a spot right now where they could be playing their best hockey of the season going into the Four Nations break, which could be unfortunate. It could not be. It could be good to get some time off. Who knows? But we're basically playing this to the All-Star game where it's like you get 2 of these like mini bye weeks throughout the season. And do they actually get their own bye week anymore? So they're going to have 3?
They have the Four Nations into a bye week.
Oh, it's Four Nations into a bye week for them?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. I believe that's how it's scheduled. So they technically
it's either before or after?
Yeah. So they have 2 weeks off, which, like you said, I mean, that could be a good thing in terms of resetting and not losing focus, because going on a run where you're playing every other day, playing 3 and 4 on a streak that you're kind of stressed out about keeping it going. But now you get a little bit of a mental reprieve and you can go back and finish the home stretch rested. But I mean, we'll see. Like, tonight's game obviously is huge. You need to get the 2 points tonight. I don't think that you can be on a 9-game point streak, be at home against a Philly team that on paper you're significantly better than.
By the way, ran your show the last time you played them.
Yeah.
It was a 2-1 game, but they embarrassed you.
Yep, they really did. It's a big game. It's a big game. But honestly, the positive thing, and the most positive thing I should say, is Igor Shesterkin, who's 5-0-1, 145 goals against, 943 save percentage with 2 shutouts since returning from the IR. Likely he's going to go again tonight on back-to-back shutouts. So we'll see how long he can keep that streak going. But this is a guy who throughout that slump was not playing up to the caliber that all Rangers fans know he has to play to be worth not only the contract, but have that title as, one of the best goaltenders in the league. And now all of a sudden we're starting to see that kind of round back into form and at the perfect time too. So, okay, I'm going to get ahead of myself here, but I do want to talk about it. And I know you might laugh because this might be a little too positive for me, but I'm looking at this from the perspective of if the Rangers are going to make the playoffs, that means the last 2.5 months of the season are basically going to be playoff games for them. Igor Shesterkin, we know how good he is in the postseason. We're starting to see that type of form right now. If the Rangers make the playoffs as the 8 seed and Washington remains the 1 seed, I don't see Washington beating the Rangers in the first round. And if they get to the second round and they have to play Carolina, I don't see Carolina beating the Rangers. So right back to the same exact situation that we would have been envisioning prior to that. Now, that's a lot of things going right. And I know I said it before I even said the sentence. I know I'm stepping ahead of myself, but the way things are shaping up for them, if they are to make the postseason, it's the first time during this 2 Eastern Conference Finals stretch in 3 years that they're going to have to be playing meaningful games leading up to the postseason. And I think that that's actually a good thing.
You are at Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Herbert level if at the moment. There's still so much work to be done before that is even a thought in my head. And you know that. Obviously you know that, but it is something to think about. Do I think they're a better team than Washington? Yes. Do I think they have the magic that Washington has? No. I've always been very high on the Carolina Hurricanes. Do I think they're a better overall team than Carolina? History shows yes, they've beaten them twice in the postseason. But I don't think they're a better team than Carolina is. I think they have significantly better goaltending. Carolina's goaltending is just god awful. Like Freddie Anderson's coming back. I don't buy like he's injured for 7-8 weeks at a time.
2 straight years with them already.
Yeah, he's injured 7-8 weeks at a time every time he's out there. Kochetkov, Tokarski, like these guys are not NHL caliber goaltenders that they're throwing out every single night. So, I think they're vulnerable. Like the Rangers can take advantage of Carolina. I think they can take advantage of Washington if it becomes it. I think they can take advantage of the Devils. Like you look at the Devils lineup and it's not great. Like they have a top 3. Their first forward line's great. The rest of it mid, Yep. Their goaltending has saved their ass a lot this season. That was why they weren't very good last year, is because their goaltending just didn't exist. Now they have some question marks with Markstrom being out. But again, this is all hinging on the fact that the Rangers come out of this hot streak that they're on and don't just completely collapse. So it's more, I am so much more worried about what the Rangers are doing than anybody else. And this can kind of segue into another gripe that I've had this week. There's a lot of people outside of the New York Rangers bubble that care about the New York Rangers, and it is some of the saddest shit I've ever seen. Speaking of New Jersey and the Islanders, let me find the tweet really quickly. I believe it's what's his name? Mike Banter, or is that who it is? Who does like those TikTok
Bartner,
videos?
I think it
Bartner? Is it Bartner?
Yeah.
Let's find it. I don't want to misquote it or anything like that. Yeah, Mike Bartner posted a couple days ago the hockey references of Capo Caco and Alexis Lafreniere saying, I thought Hockey Reference was glitching, but no way this is correct. Your team is at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Stay out of our mentions. Ryan Whitney, I think the day before, was talking about how the Ranger fans should be dunking on, what's that guy? Pasha?
Yeah, the Barstool guy for the Devils, right?
We don't care. None of us care. The regular fans that aren't just like the trolls and lowlives on Twitter, I don't give a shit about what the Devils are doing. I don't care what the Islanders are doing. I care about the Rangers. If the Rangers win, then I could give 2 shits about what the Devils do, what the Islanders do. That's not the case for the other fan bases. Like there would be no New York Islanders or New Jersey Devils fan bases without the New York Rangers, and that is a hill that I will die on. The hatred that they have for the Rangers franchise is the only reason that their organizations exist. And you can clip that, you can post it if you want. It's the last I'll speak about it because, again, I could care less about what, like, I find that Devils fans specifically, I think Islander fans are a little bit better, and maybe just because I didn't grow up on Long Island, I grew up in Jersey, so I didn't see it as much, or wasn't around Islander fans as much. Devils fans watch Rangers games more than Devils fans watch Devils games, or at least just as much. Like, they are following along with everything that goes on. They know the lineup changes. They know what fucking stick Artemi Panarin's using that day before Ranger fans do. They are so far up the Rangers' asses that it is genuinely hilarious. But I had to get that off my chest because I see it all too often where other fan bases, specifically in the tri-state area, care so much about what the Rangers are doing. I can't tell you who the leading scorer on the Islanders or the Devils are. I don't know who leads them in penalty minutes, this and that, what the lore is that's going on with their season, because I don't care, because I don't have to care. And is it a big brother thing? Yeah, it might be. Nobody around here needs the Devils and the Islanders. They don't. Nobody does.
I mean, we talk about them in reference to the Rangers, like we just did, right, with the standings. That's when we bring up the Devils. But you are right. There's definitely a lot of try to kick them when they're down with the other two fan bases. Whereas, at least I haven't ever felt the need to go at the Devils or Islanders fans whenever something's going wrong. Most of the time, because their whole seasons are always going wrong. But it's not necessarily something that we have to do because we have enough to keep us busy. And I've always said that there's nobody that hates the Rangers more than Rangers fans. So you're not going to be more negative or chirp about the Rangers more than we're already doing as a fan base about ourselves.
I used that phrase this week with the Jets because I saw something on Twitter that was like, and I live in Rochester, so like I'm around the Bills. I saw someone be like, if you're a real Jets fan, you can't be rooting for the Bills. I'm like, the Jets aren't good enough to have any rivals. Like, they haven't won enough games to hate anybody. I'm like, the only people the Jets fans should be hating is the Jets organization for what they've done. For that, I would love to see the Bills make it to the Super Bowl. It would be fantastic. It would be
the only real New York team.
Also, like, it's who wants to watch the Chiefs again? I'm sorry. I know my friend Colin, I don't know if he's watching. He's a diehard Chiefs fan, and he will defend them till the end of time. But nobody wants to see that.
I can't stomach another Super Bowl with that team in it. But going around the league now, because you mentioned how other fans are talking about the Rangers. So let's talk about some other games that are going to go on around the league, because there actually happen to be 3 games tonight that I'm keyed on outside of the Rangers-Flyers game. So the first is Ottawa is in Boston. Both teams obviously ahead of the Rangers currently in the standings at 52 points. One of those teams is going to get 2 points, which means they're going to be at 54. So the Rangers cannot make it into the wild card spot tonight. Columbus at 53. One of those two teams will be at 54. Now, if you're a Rangers fan, you're thinking, okay, well, who do I root for in that game? You don't. You root for that game to go in regulation and not into overtime. So that's one. The next one, Montreal at Detroit. That is a key game for the New York Rangers because you do not want Montreal to stay as hot as they have been. If Montreal beats Detroit, they'll be at 54 points. They'll be in that wild card spot as well. Detroit's only at 47 points. They came on as of late, but then they cooled off a little bit. So if you're a Rangers fan, you're rooting for Detroit to win that game in regulation.
I can't like sit here at the end of January and start counting points just yet. That's
We're at that time, man.
I know. I can't. It's more of an end of February into March thing for me, where you start really caring about what other teams do, because I feel like at that point you're in it or you're not. Yeah. By end of February, early March, you're either in the hunt or you're not. I can't get behind counting points at this point. Like, if you're in a wild card spot right now, so be it. If you're not, get there by April. That's all I can say, is just get there by April. That's all that matters. We see it all the time. You saw it with I'll bring up another sport, the Mets this year, not in a playoff spot for basically most of the season. They end up and they make a run. So there are instances where it doesn't matter, and I think this is one of them at the time of the year. Obviously, you want the Rangers to win. That's all. I'm bringing this back to this point that I don't care what the Bruins do. I don't care what Montreal does. I don't care what anybody else does. If the Rangers win, there's enough games left where they can take care of business if they just worry about themselves. And fan bases can do whatever the hell fan bases want to do. If you want to worry about somebody else, so be it. But if the Rangers take care of their own business in front of them for the rest of the season, that means going, 600 point percentage, let's say, for the end of the season, you will make the playoffs. It doesn't matter what the other teams do. And if you don't make the playoffs and you have a 600 point percentage for the rest of the season, that's just because your November and December was so shit. And that's on you. It's not because another team got hot or this or that. just win your games in front of you. That's all I can care about.
Yeah, and the final game is Columbus and Carolina. That's a game I'm going to be looking at. Not necessarily because of the standings, but just because. Yeah,
I'd much rather the Blue Jackets win. I hate Carolina.
I just want to see how Columbus stacks up in that type of game. They're in Carolina. We know that barn is a tough place to play. So it's kind of are they for real, or were they just having a nice stretch, which I guess you could say about all of these teams that are currently in the wild card picture. But you mentioned the 600-point percentage. The Rangers have 35 games left, so there's 70 possible points that they could still obtain this season. 6 points in 60% of those games would give them 92 points on the year. That's close, right? You're close to teetering on that point. If you can get 50 out of the 70 points and you're at 100, I think you're pretty squarely in with how this race is going. So that's the range they're looking at. It's got to be at least 600 point percentage over the course of the next 35 games. Now, if the Rangers are playing as they're capable of, that shouldn't be a problem. That's something that they could do and rattle off in any stretch of the season. But this is not any other season. This is a season that's seen them for 2 months get roughly 30% of the points in games, and that obviously has put them in this position. So
same lineup, by the way, tonight.
Yeah, exactly. They're not making any changes right now.
Yep,
not until they lose. But this is so the Flyers Rangers play tonight, right? 7:00, and we'll kind of finish up on this. We talked about Matt Rempe scoring a goal. I want to see tonight. You got a Flyers team that we know has a couple of guys in Hathaway and Delorier that like to throw the hands. They like to get under your skin. Can he play a similar type of game that he did against Ottawa, where he got in the middle of a scrum when he needed to, didn't do anything outlandish that put the Rangers down a man, and was still able to have an effect on the game? If he's able to stay away from the unnecessary fights, getting lured into the chaos and the secondary stuff that surrounds the game, I like the Rangers odds tonight. If he does anything stupid and puts them down a man for an elongated period of time, that's when the Flyers have a chance to kind of steal one from the Rangers tonight. So again, he's not going to play much, but when he does play, there's a lot of things that could happen when he's on the ice, both good and bad for the Rangers. And we need to see a lot of that good for the Rangers to have a chance, because him playing 2 minutes but being given a 5-minute major in a game misconduct hurts the team significantly more than him playing 2.5, 3 minutes and not having any impact on the game at all.
Oh, absolutely. And I will always look at this person when they play Philadelphia. It's Mika Zibanejad, 19 goals, 19 assists in his career against the Flyers. I need to break this down by when he's with the Rangers. But he is just a flyer killer when he plays against them. Obviously to get him going would be huge for this team to continue their hot stretch. But you always got to look at Mika. I had a buddy, my roommate in college is a huge Flyers fan, and every time they play each other, it's the only player, and he hates Zibanejad. He hates them. He hates him because he plays against them, not because why Ranger fans hate Zibanejad. But I think he's a guy to look out for. I wouldn't be surprised to look out for Arthur Kaliev. I mean, he looks like he's on a heater right now. We saw 2 go in. He's seen 3 go in the last 2 games. Yep. So that might be good for him. It'd be very interested to see. 2 counted, 3 went in, but it's still it's good to see the puck go in.
His shot, man, if he can find space and get that off consistently, that's something the Rangers desperately need, because he can score from anywhere. We've seen that. That was kind of the Vetrano effect when they acquired him at the deadline. Was not necessarily how good of a player he was, but the fact that he was willing to shoot the puck from everywhere and all the chaos that ensued around that. That is what Kaliev did against Ottawa the other night. And obviously only one of them wound up counting, but both those shots were pretty elite in terms of how quick he got them off.
If I have to give you a anytime goal scorer for tonight, I'll throw Zibanejad out there. I don't know what number he's at, but give me Zibanejad for the anytime goal scorer tonight. I know we haven't done these predictions in a long time, so I'm very interested to see what your take on this whole matter is. Let's get the schedule up there. I don't know if when's our next episode will be Thursday.
Yep.
Rangers are, by the way, favorited tonight. I hate the way this site is. I can't just get the Rangers up there.
You know that they do not have a point per game player since January 1st when this run started.
The Rangers?
Artemi Panarin, 10 and 11. Adam Fox, 10 and 11 played. Those are the 2 leaders. So not a single player on the roster is going at a point per game pace since January 1st, yet they're playing good team defense, and they're playing as a collective unit, and that is why you win games. So it's just further proof that you do not need somebody scoring, a 2-point per game clip like Panarin was last year, but you need a collective effort and commitment in the defensive zone.
Mika is plus 275 tonight to score a goal. If you want to be so bold, plus 1,800 for the first goal scorer. I think that's worth your money for how good he's been against Philadelphia in the past. Artemi Panarin plus 165, the highest. Flyers Owen Tippett at plus 235.
I'll take Sam Carrick anytime goal scorer. Now the whole maple syrup thing's out there. I think he's got one in his bag tonight.
Sam Gretzky. Carrick. I'm trying to find this. Oh my god, he's not even on here. Nick Seeler is listed before Sam Carrick. What the? Oh, there he is. Never mind. I lied. Plus 650. His profile picture is not in a Ranger uniform. It's in a Ducks uniform.
Yep.
So it blended in with the Flyers uniforms.
Tied fourth on the Rangers with 7 points since January 1st, by the way.
Okay, listen, I know we have to leave and everything like that, but I will say we give Drury shit for a lot of stuff, but he killed $3 million off the books, replaced it with a $1 million player in Sam Carrick, who has already surpassed Barclay Goodrow's point total from last season. So,
first of all, there was talk about maybe him being a guy that they want to move because of the controllable contract. When you're looking at a fourth line center, there's nobody that you would rather have right now with how he's playing than Sam Carrick. Now, the offense, I don't expect it to continue, but defensively he's been great, physically he's been great, and he's been that veteran kind of solidifying that fourth line where you have two guys in Rempe and Edstrom who are relatively young. But before our next episode next Thursday, we have tonight's game against the Flyers, we have Sunday's game against the Avalanche, and then you have Tuesday against the Hurricanes. Those are the only 3 games before that. Then they have a couple of days off before they play Boston on Saturday, February 1st. So 3 home games, 3 games that are games you'd like to see the Rangers win, not necessarily for the playoff implications that tonight's game has, but because you do want to see them not only beating teams up in the wild card race, but also beating the upper echelon to prove that they're truly back in form. So you want to go first?
I'll say 1-1-1. I think they win tonight. I think they lose to Carolina in overtime, and I think they get steamrolled by the Avs. And I mainly because it's the Avs, and also they haven't particularly played well in these 1 p.m. start games, and that's when they'll play on Sunday. So I don't like the start time. I don't like the matchup. 1-1-1, 2-1 to be positive.
All right, I will say 3-0. I want to say 2-1, but I'm going 3-0. I think that they win tonight. The Rangers Avalanche go to overtime almost every time, so they're going to have a chance to win that game. They lost in overtime in Colorado. I think that they get it done at Madison Square Garden. And then I just think that the way, if they win these 2 games, right, and they're on an 11-game point streak, they've now won 3 in a row. I think that confidence going against the Hurricanes team that they've had a really good amount of success against is going to continue. So I don't view the Hurricanes as a threat. That could just be me being naive because of past results. But even when the Rangers were at their worst this year and they played Carolina, it was still a close game. And I think that the Rangers just have something that they see in the Carolina jersey that gets them up for the game. The same way you could look at the Devils, right, and Jack Hughes and how good he does against the New York Rangers, regardless of how the team's doing. Certain guys, certain teams see another team and just light up. So I'm going to stay with the positivity and I'm going to keep the vibes going. And I have to do that because of their record since my last appearance on the episodes.
Yeah, I was going to say they better. Otherwise, you can't show up next week.
Yeah, all the behind-the-scenes stuff that I try to do, and I can't even talk on the show because as soon as I stop, they go 7-1, start rattling off points.
You're heard and you're appreciated, Brendan.
I gotta get the flu again just to keep the good vibes going. But no, it was at least nice that while I'm sitting on the couch, ill as hell, that they're rattling off points, and it was enjoyable to watch rather than the usual crap we were seeing early in the year.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so big game tonight, Rangers Flyers at the Garden. It's not a must win, but it is a game that you have to win. So take it that way you will. I think you have to beat the Flyers at home. And, you talked about the Devils and Islanders. I hate the Flyers. That's always been the team that pisses me off to no end.
They haven't been good enough for me to care about them.
It's just that ugly ass orange. All right. Before we get too sidetracked. Well, thank you all for listening. We appreciate it. Hopefully it's another good game tonight. The point streak reaches 10, and we will see you all next Thursday.
See you guys.